Good morning, everyone. I'm Peter Haak. I'm a senior technology reporter at Politico. And to wake you all up, we're going to start with a little audience participation. If you used a generative AI chatbot in the past week, raise your hand. That's a lot of hands. If you did some vibe coding in the past week, raise your hand. Oh, that's not that much. And if you're aware of an AI agent already being used in your firm or organization, raise your hand. That's a lot. So we see that AI is all around us. People are using chatbots, people are doing some vibe coding, but not that much. And we see AI agents popping up everywhere. The rapid pace of AI development is clear, and we're going to dive into the question what Brussels' response is to that. And we're going to do that with three esteemed panelists. First of all, we have Alberto Gago, who's the director of the Spanish AI Authority. We have Aura Sala, a Finnish European Parliament lawmaker. And in the end, we have Daniel Privitera, Executive Director of the Kira Center based in Berlin. This panel will have a Q&A session at the end, so I encourage you all to come up with a question, not a statement, very important. Let's dive right into it. Daniel, I'm going to start with you because you're not a Brussels-based person, and I love those people because they sometimes are a bit more blunt than people based in Brussels. You keep a close eye on advanced models. You keep a close eye on them. You also wrote the EU Code of Practice for the most complex, the most advanced models. I want you to walk us a bit through the pace of the model deployment and of the pace of models coming in, and give us a sense of what you think if Brussels is ready to keep up with that pace.
And you want a blunt statement,
yes.
Right? Good to be here, first of all, thank you. I think we get accustomed to the high pace of development in frontier AI. And a vivid example or like an anecdote that I witnessed when I traveled to San Francisco recently at the start of the year. I was talking to a lot of technical people there working at the frontier companies, at the top 3, top 4 companies. And I was having dinner with this one guy who's a pretty senior technical person. And he told me he stopped coding months ago. And that's, of course, because their internal most advanced model is just better at coding. So he just speaks to the model and tells it what code he wants, and then the model writes all the code. And somehow, when I talk about this to people, the reactions are like, wow, yeah, the pace is really high. 2 or 3 years ago, this would have seemed sci-fi. Computers that write their own computer code. And it's a good example, I think, of how used we have gotten to this very weird trajectory of this very unusual technology. And there's always this question in AI circles, are we reaching a plateau now, maybe? Are we now reaching a plateau? But the trend over the past years has just been very steady. And I think, in particular, when it comes to AI R&D itself, the trend is just very clear. It's exponential. Some would say even super exponential. And that data that we have is at least consistent with continued very, very fast progress.
Because that also means that the current AI models are going to build the next AI models, I assume.
I think increasingly we're seeing those dynamics. Of course, humans are very much involved and important still. But yeah, I think it's fair to say that these feedback loops are starting to kick in now as AI makes AI researchers more productive and faster. And now I remember the last part of your question, which was how prepared is Brussels for it? And I think nobody is prepared. And we Europeans, unfortunately, I think are in a particularly bad spot.
Well, that's a great outlook to start with. I remind what we said about the pace being super exponential. Then I turn to you, Aura. Here in Brussels, the pace is not at all super exponential. I have the feeling like it takes a long time to negotiate a law, and then we already come back to the law. We had the AI Act, and now we have the AI Omnibus. What do you make of this different pace of both lawmaking, building the right conditions also to keep up in the AI race, and then this super exponential pace? What is there a mismatch there? I assume there is.
Of course there is a mismatch. If you think about Putin said over 10 years ago that who will win the race on AI will win the race on globe, and that's what's happening, and Silicon Valley is winning. It all comes back to data. And it all went wrong over 10 years ago in Brussels when we started to build this mayhem of regulation around data without understanding business models of these big American tech companies. And this is the one thing that I would call out for Brussels, now being a main rapporteur on the digital omnibus. It all requires data if we want to develop any AI models, and that's something that we are lacking in Europe. I completely disagreed with Anu Bradford back in the days when she said that, regulation will be the best possible export product coming from Europe. Well, look at us now. We have lost this game a long time ago, and now we are trying to do something at least, but it's too slow. We are focusing on wrong things. And I also think that people don't understand how much data this kind of a models actually requires. And yes, it also requires some personal data. It requires our researchers be enabled to use more data. And this is something that I don't think that many people who think that GDPR, for example, it's somehow something fundamental for us. Then we can be here with this fundamental law without any of these leading companies. So we need data, we need capital, and we need deregulation if we want to keep up this game.
That's a clear statement from the lawmaker. I want to bring in the regulator or the supervisor to say, Alberto, you're based in Spain. Spain has been one of the, has a thriving economy at the moment, also a very bustling startup scene. But at the same time, it's also a country that has pushed very hard, for example, for the AI Act. Why do you see the balance between pushing forward and at the same time slamming the brake and making sure that people are protected? Why do you see the balance there?
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for inviting us to be part of this debate. I think what is important in all this digital policy making is that what rights exist offline for people, they must exist online. And that means the right to not to be discriminated by an algorithm, the right that your data is kept private as long as you want it to be kept private. So it's important that we recall why we are doing all this, and we are doing it for the citizens. I was advisor of Carme Artigas when Carme Artigas was the lead negotiator during the Spanish presidency of the Council of the EU back in 2023. We spent 36 hours in that final trialogue in December 2023. And we did that in a way that it was the most protective for citizens, but at the same time, it struck a balance with the innovation that is needed and is required for companies to put their systems in the market. And I would like to recall everyone here, when the Commission made a public consultation in 2021, I remember 1/3 or 2/4 of the businesses that replied to that consultation before the AI regulation was put as a proposal. They say that they don't implement AI into their business processes because they didn't know what was the responsibility if something with that AI went wrong. So what we need to all remember is that we are doing this first because of the citizens, and second because of legal certainty that businesses need to innovate. And I would like that we all question what is this race that we are supposed to be in. Where are we heading towards? What is the point of all this? Race that we're trying to
We'll come
lead.
to that, but I want to go further on what you said about, okay, we negotiated for 36 hours and trying to find some balance, but I think the consensus here in Brussels is that the balance was wrong because we already have the AI omnibus rolling back some of the rules that were negotiated even a year before. And I want to bring in even last night 7 CEOs from big companies like ASML, Siemens, Nokia. They made a new plea for extra simplification. So they're saying what is on the table is even not enough. And of course, Ara, you're one of the leading negotiators now on the digital omnibus, but I also want to hear, if we look at the whole package, the AI omnibus, the digital omnibus, are we getting it right? Are we fixing what was wrong back in the time? Or do we need even further cuts after that?
Absolutely we need. So we need to start with the GDPR and understanding what it requires to actually train these models. And what we are trying to do here is that we need competitive Europe, not that we will be in some race to pay our social welfare states. I'm sorry guys, we need this money. And this is the point here. And the second thing is that we don't have one market. We still don't have that market. It requires capital. And we will not have this capital markets union if we don't touch some of the fundamental things in a national laws, like insolvency, like opening our pension funds to help these companies to scale. But that's not enough. So it requires data and enabling much more data. One thing. And the second thing is this capital. And the third thing is that you need to also understand we have layers of regulation now. So from Data Act to Data Governance Act, AI Act, and so on and so forth. And none of these enables these companies to grow. The opposite. And then someone will tell me, okay, Aura, you work for Mark Zuckerberg. You are here only for big tech. So that will be one of the questions today from the audience. I don't care about Meta. I don't care if they leave today Europe. I don't own even one stock. No one cares about that. But what we care about is that Finnish Prime Minister, Belgian Prime Minister, Macron still uses US tech in their critical infrastructure, in their messaging services. Finnish and Swedish governments will be down in less than 1 hour if Microsoft uses the kill switch again in Europe. If they leave now, we are screwed. So we need to stay, we need to be sovereign when it comes to technology. And how we scale this is this data, capital, and the third thing is in a public procurement, we need to put European companies first. Huge thing, huge thing. If you put European sovereignty first and then price the second, that would scale our technology.
But going back to the initial question, you say we need further cuts, we need enabling conditions rather than new rules?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because we all know who work on AI or any technology that data can be dangerous in a hands that doesn't know what it's doing. And it is in this kind of a hands. So now we are handing this data for free for American companies. We don't have any blockages there because they say that, okay, data is service, you cannot use it in a trade negotiations. That's wrong. Data is immaterial right. It's raw material like cobalt or lithium. We need to put price on our data and make sure that these American companies cannot import all our data to the United States. We need to keep it here. And we need to get rid of Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Apple, Meta in this continent and focus on our own companies.
Okay, that's clear. Daniel, I want to bring you in because here in Brussels, omnibus is a big word. Everyone speaks about it. It's simplification, omnibus here, omnibus there. But I want to ask from you, if you're outside Brussels and you're, for example, in San Francisco, does an omnibus make any impression at all? Is that really going to move the needle in the AI areas?
I was actually just thinking about that. My impression is that it might miss the core of, at least when we talk about frontier AI. So when I speak to people I know at OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, the main reason or the main thing that I hear them talk about in terms of challenges, why don't they, why couldn't they train a frontier model in Europe, for instance? There was this talk a few months ago when the Department of War and Anthropic had a clash, and then I think some public letters circulated saying, why don't we just invite Anthropic to become a European company?
But that's an excellent question. Why is that not happening, and what should we do to change it?
Right, so I think there's a big topic here around compute, which we should talk about, but even setting that aside and assuming that somehow the compute issue was solved, the main thing in terms of regulatory obstacles that I hear is about copyright, because that is the companies think it's much, much harder for them to do that outside of the US and in Europe, and basically doing frontier model training wouldn't really work. I don't hear them talk about the AI Act so much as, maybe, and this is again a difference, when you talk to frontier AI companies, they're most concerned with the general purpose AI part of the AI Act, the general purpose AI with systemic risk obligations. And I'm biased, of course, because as you said, I helped write the code of practice for these rules, but I think the general understanding there is this works fine for the companies. And you mentioned Meta, Aura. All of the frontier companies but Meta signed the code of practice and signaled this works for us. Of course, we don't love it, but it's workable.
But that's interesting, because if you mention like copyright is a big thing, then why are we wasting our time on the digital omnibus? We should spend our time on the copyright review.
We should, but it comes to the review next year. Yeah. And I think that's a major thing, and I definitely want to work on that. But I would actually, the AI Act, does it change the game that much? I don't think so. GDPR is much more fundamental, and that's why I wanted to work on that file, because defining data, that's crucial for all these omnibuses. So you need to go to the basis when you want to enable data use.
Something I want to bring in is what really changed the debate in the past weeks here in Brussels is, of course, the unveil of, the not unveil of Anthropic's Mythos model. Anthropic said, like, we're going to release that to a set of trusted tech and cyber firms because we're too afraid that it will be exploited for checking on cybersecurity vulnerabilities. Alberto, you as a supervisor, I think something like that must really rattle your cage, because this is something that you don't have access to as a supervisor or a regulator. It is talked about a lot. There are big concerns about cybersecurity. What do you make of all that as a supervisor?
So first of all, we need to make clear that the competence on supervising models like this one, it's on the AI office. So they are the ones mainly overseeing the compliance with the regulation. But of course, there is something. So for example, when we knew that Mythos, well, all the news about Mythos hit the papers, we went to the AI office asking for more information and for more coordination. One of the 4 countries that first did this appeal. And what it looks like is that the powerfulness of these models will require a joint action at European level, not only from the AI office, but also from member states supporting the AI office in first of all, convincing or ensuring that Anthropic also gives access to this model to the AI office and the member states, so that we can test it, just as they did with the AI Safety Summit Institute of the UK.
You said that you asked for more information. Was the AI office able to give you that, because they themselves don't have access to the model?
Well, the conversations that we are having between the AI office and the member states, you understand that they are mainly confidential. But we saw the need for more coordination and more information sharing between ourselves, so that we can be prepared to what is coming. But it's not just a matter of Mythos. It's a matter of OpenAI also published the other day that they had a model similar to that one. But what is worrying is that it gives, for example, access to 40 companies across the globe, none of them in Europe, but not to us. And my minister for economy also made the headlines in Spain, asking for Mythos to open for Anthropic to open Mythos for us to understand it. So what we need to see, but the Mythos thing, it's not anecdotal, because it's important and it's gonna be groundbreaking. But we need to see how we are going to be at the forefront as well of all these developments in a coordinated way.
But if you said that 4 countries made a plea to the AI office to have some sort of coordination, can you say which countries and where will
I cannot say, because
where will this be settled? Is that ideally in the AI board, where countries?
Well, the AI board is the place where we talk about what is happening in.
And when is the next meeting, and will it be on the agenda?
Well, I think we have a next meeting in June.
And it will be on the agenda?
Board. I don't know. That's the AI office to decide. I'm not the one who is putting the agenda of the AI office.
But you have the competency to put something on the agenda.
Well, we can ask for it in any other business point, of course.
But one thing you need to understand with these US companies is that our AI office will never have access to any crucial parts of these businesses. Is it any of these American companies? Sorry, but they are just fooling around with us, with the DSA or any of these regulations, and the AI office will not be someone who can force these companies to do something like this. I think we are naive if we think this. And what is requested from these companies, okay, let's give them this information so they will be happy for a while. Come on. So that's why I think we need to start focusing on our own tech, so that we could use more secured European technology and try to push these American companies completely out from this market. Not completely out. then there will be reciprocity. When we will have tech companies and tech market where we can do business together. But now it's like this. These American companies are just thinking that we are fools here, giving all our data to these companies for free and, you know, buying their services. So it's uneven right now.
If you speak about reciprocity, then you also say like Europe needs to build up its own leverage, but also use its own leverage. For example, should we say we have ASML in the Netherlands, a very important company that delivers chip printing machines all over the globe? Should we say, well, no access to ASML machines anymore? Is that something that should be put on the table?
Something I would say is that France did the right decision. They are starting to use only European tech in the public sector now. Maybe French tech, I assume, not European, to be honest, but good for them. I want Finland to do the same, Belgium to do the same. Let's only use European tech in the public sector. I'm a market liberalist in that sense that if private sector wants to use some other services, I'm not going to force that. But in the public sector, you need to start choosing European technology. Then we can talk about AI office, having some access and trustworthy
My
AI.
question was different. Should we choke off certain access from US to European technology, like ASML printers?
Absolutely. I think we should. I think we should be much more brutal. And maybe it's bold, and maybe it's protectionist. But come on, look at what Trump is doing. He's threatening a sovereign country in Europe. And would Pentagon choose European tech? Or will Trump choose European technology? I don't think so. I'm sorry. So we need to be brutal here. We are so naive. And then we think that our AI office will have some kind of access to these companies. Will not happen.
Daniel, I want to bring you in because, in general, this is also a debate about private companies being able to really, as Aura said, cherry pick who they give access. And in a certain way, it's really, they're putting themselves above governments. Are we going to a world where these companies are making the calls and the shots rather than governments? Are they the new states? Well, are they the new states?
I wouldn't say that's the case right now, but I think if you believe the trajectory that we have seen over the past years in frontier AI continues in a roughly similar way, then there's a huge question around power that comes with that. And to me, I think you two are probably, and Aura, if I hear you speak, you're probably much more in the weeds and all the other sort of digital technologies, and I'm more squarely focused on AI and frontier AI. And so I might be biased, but to me it does seem like this one is a different beast also, and sort of access and control over the best capabilities in this technologies give you more power and a different kind of power, especially if we're talking about, so again, people in the leading companies talk about AI research and development potentially being completely automated in a couple of years before 2030. No humans required. This is, it sounds sci-fi, but where we are at now also sounded sci-fi a while ago. And yes, whoever controls that technology, I think is going to have enormous amounts of power. And we're talking about, you asked about choke points and ASML. I think one thing that might be controversial or spicy here in the Brussels context from what I gather is the question around compute. We have the Gigafactories announcement, which people have all sorts of opinions about. When I look at the distribution of compute between Europe and the US, it makes me very, very worried. So, we're talking about the gigafactories here in Brussels. They're called gigafactories, which sounds huge, right? And it is huge. But they pale in comparison to what the build out is in the US. So if and when they all come online in, I don't know how many years, you know this better, 2 or 3 years maybe, they're going to be worth maybe somewhere around 0.5, 0.8 megawatts of gigawatts of connectivity. A few weeks ago in the US, a single data center with more than 1 gigawatt came online already. So we're going to be 3 years behind, half the size spread over the entire continent, and we call them gigafactories, and they are a step in the right direction. But if we talk about leverage, this is something that's very top of mind for me. I think we need to find a way to make sure that some of the infrastructure build-out that is happening and that is going to be the substrate of everything that will happen with this transformational technology is going to be on European soil. So we have a stake and we have a say.
Here, I couldn't agree with this more. Like for the Commission, the strategy is build like computing capacity and gigafactories. It sounds great, but come on. So you are building infrastructure without innovation and scaling companies. It's like, it's this European Union mindset that let's build a road with European money, but no one cares if there is industry, a viable company like there at the end of the road. Like this is such a European Commission thinking, I would say. I'm sorry, but these data centers, gigafactories, they will be built if you have very innovative idea and a company. So it's completely wrong way around, I think, this strategy.
But if we then link it to the tech sovereignty package that is coming at the end of May, that is currently focused on cloud, chips, a bit of open software. But then, if I hear you saying, it should be much more about access to AI models, having sovereign AI and having compute. Is the focus of the tech sovereignty package wrong?
Well, first of all, it needs to be then a real sovereignty package. You saw the vendors that the Commission chose now for buying in cloud technology for the EU institutions, and Google is part of that. I know that they're also paying for this conference. So, but you know, it was supposed to be sovereign selection, but we need to get Proximus in so Google can also come along. So I really hope they will be bolder now in May. Yes, it needs to tick all these boxes, but as long as the EU institutions or any of public sector entities in Europe still keep using American tech, we cannot talk about sovereign continent. And yes, of course it requires data centers, computing and so on, but this is like the bulk infrastructure that should come like not at the frontier tech and where we should focus first.
Yeah. Alberto, what's Spain's position in this? Because Spain is increasingly a hub for compute power. We've seen some compute providers or cloud services going there. Is that something where you're like, okay, we should indeed try to be sovereign, or no, we should just try to bring in as much compute power as we can?
So on this front, I would like to mention that one of the, and you, Aura, were mentioning it before, one of the main challenges is actually capital investment. Spain had a venture capital fund of 2 billion euros to invest in AI, in any deep tech and deep science companies in Spain, and it was hard to match with the private capital, because there is in Europe a risk aversion to investment from private sector. So this is not just a task, and this is in order to also see the whole picture. It's not a task only of the Commission or the public sector. It's a task as well, a commitment of the private sector, of European private sector, to chip in with boldness and with action. On the side of compute, so we are host of 2 AI factories. One is in the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, and the other one is in Galicia, next to our agency that is based in Coruña. The one in Galicia is focused on health, on applications of AI for health. And I think this is a way for us that we believe that we can democratize and popularize compute power, giving access to startups and SMEs that want to check and to prove their models. And this very much links to the position that Spain has been defending across the board for the last few years, is that you don't need to choose between regulation or protection of rights and innovation. You can do both by providing the compute capacity, by providing capital investment, but also by providing the regulatory sandbox of AI. We were the first country that put it in place in the whole European Union, and we developed 16 guidelines on how you implement technically the obligations of the regulation on AI. They are translated in English for everyone to benefit from this exercise with 12 companies in Spain. And at the same time, we are putting all the institutional framework in order for the rights of people to be respected when they are using AI.
Yeah. And you are giving tax breaks for tech directors. Let's not forget that.
I also hear you saying that it's also a bit of a balance in the tone that you strike. Of course, you say like we want to be open for business, but we also want to protect our citizens. But if you, for example, if from August onwards, if you will have to enforce some of the AI Act rules, what is the tone that you will strike? Is it really like from day one we're gonna go hard on these companies, or rather maybe a grace period. Let's see how we enforce these rules and to keep that pro-innovation tone also alive. What's the tone?
We will see when we get to that point, but I mean, we will have to do what the law mandates, and that's it.
So no sneak peek yet of which tone you will strike from then onwards?
Well, we are a country that believes in that you don't need to choose between innovation and protection. You can do both. We are showing it. We are proving that this is possible. And then with regards to whatever needs to be done in the future, we will cross that bridge when we come to it.
Okay. I want to turn to the audience because, as said, this is a Q&A session. So there will be 2 roving mics. If you have a question, please raise your hand and state clearly who you are, what organization you work for, and what your question is. Not a statement, please. No questions yet, I see. Yeah, there was one there at the side.
Hi, everyone. Hello? Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the question. I'm Benedict Sinat from the European Commission. I have a question specifically. Earlier on, it was brought up, basically throughout a lot of the data protection, instead just granted to companies. That way we will push innovation. I see the angle, but how would we, practically speaking, do it? Who owns the data? Who gives the data to who? And how would we monetize that or not monetize that? Do we say there's a basically tax scheme to then further push innovation, or how do we practically go about that?
Thank you. Excellent question. I was hoping for this. I'm meeting Max Schrems next week. So, as we all know, when we start using any applications, if anyone still opens TikTok, you start giving this behavioral data, metadata, traffic data for this company. Basically, to China, who helps Putin to win in Ukraine. So a terrible application. I hope no one is using that. But the same thing with American companies. We all know the drill. So it's not only about personal data, it's data where you can profile. So then someone tells me that, yeah, but it's very difficult. We have a privacy shield. We have a privacy shield between the EU and the US, right? But it's invalid. Everyone knows, the Commission knows that it's invalid. Trump watered it down right when he started. So basically we are yet again giving all our data for free to the United States. They can do whatever it likes, or these companies can do whatever they like with data, and we can be proud of GDPR here and try to make sure that our own companies cannot grow. So first thing, we need to make sure that there is blockage between personal data and EU and US. Second thing, you need to understand that we need to put price also for our behavioral metadata, because you can put price on that. Google does that, Meta does that, we can do that. So we need to change the rules that data cannot be a service. It needs to be an immaterial right and raw material. And that's something that Trump understands. If we put that to trade negotiations, because then we actually have some leverage there. It's not the French champagne and cheese. It's actually data that we should use. And then we need to be honest. We cannot, as I said, we cannot enable our own companies right now with all these strict rules that we have on the GDPR. So we need to enable that data. But at the same time, we cannot serve these American companies yet again. We need to open the Digital Markets Act and make sure that it's enforced for companies coming outside of the EU much more strictly, and kick these companies out from this market. And welcome back when we have reciprocity and when you cannot use your kill switch against our public sector.
As a follow-up question, maybe the EU and the US are now thinking about this tech dialogue where they will have a discussion about DSA, DMA, etc. Do you then think that we should put that idea of putting a price on data on the table there? The next time the US whines and complains about the DSA, we should say like, okay, we're going to put a price on your data?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. If I would be in a higher position, that would be my first thing I would do. I would not golf with Trump. I will talk about data and making business, reciprocity with the US. And they would understand, all these tech giants who are posing with Trump there now, they would understand if we say that we are starting to put price on our data. Absolutely. And we need to be honest and say it out loud that Privacy Shield is not valid anymore. So we need to make sure that our data stays in Europe and our companies can develop their services with it.
I hope that answer was satisfactory. There is another question there in the middle. If you also please can stand up so that we can see you.
Hi, thanks. Jimmy Farrell from Pour Demain. Thanks a lot for the panel. One question on the GDPR and data. Given that to train an AI model, it's like the vast majority of data needed is not personal data, and the GDPR is about personal data, I wonder how the GDPR is an obstacle there. And also on Mythos, given that GPT 5.5 has now been publicly released by OpenAI, and it's very similarly cyber capable to Mythos. What do you think the EU's approach should be there? It's not had this very restricted release that Mythos has had.
And who do you direct the questions to? The first is to the...
First to Aura, and then, the second question to whoever, Daniel, if you'd like to answer.
Okay, Aura.
So basically, if you drive a truck from Lapland to Helsinki nowadays, it's considered personal data. So it's impossible to train any maps or GPS with data. This is just a concrete example. And the answer that I got from an Estonian digital minister was that, yeah, but this driver might have a lover in eastern Finland, so it is his private case. But you just get the idea that we have such strict rules on what is personal data. So that means that we are not enabling our companies to use data that it's not supposed to be personal data to train their services. And in the same package, we of course have the Data Act also. So we are trying to enable more behavioral data and metadata that it's now considered as personal data. So that's what it means.
Can you already give a sneak peek of what the Parliament will think about the personal data definition in digital omnibus?
Absolutely not.
When will we get that?
We have published the timeline, so we will take our time. We will invite you all for our public hearings. It will go to Lithuanian presidency for sure.
Okay, that's clear. Daniel, the second question I think is a good one for you. Indeed, it's not only Mythos, it's also GPT 5.5. There are a lot of models coming in who have this hacking capabilities.
Yeah, and I feel like there are a few dimensions to the question asked. One thing that you maybe pointed out was that there seem to be these two models coming out of these two companies with maybe roughly similar capabilities in the cyber domain, and yet in the one case, it's appropriately called Mythos, and everybody is, maybe freaking out about it a little bit. It's being gated, while the other one is just out there and can be used. I think, if anything, that's probably yet another reason for us to say we want to have more information and more insight into what the actual capabilities of these models are. And especially if we extrapolate the trend of capabilities, the current level, the Mythos or GPT 5.5 level might not be the super critical one yet for national security and for cybersecurity, but I think we'll definitely get there. And then we can't be at the mercy of individual companies considering this, yes, too dangerous to release or not. And actually, one point in addition that seems important there, I heard you speak, Aura, and I think I really liked, I'm sure there are a bunch of things that we disagree on, but I really like the energy of not accepting, defeat as Europe in this realm, and that we should try and, also get there and develop these capabilities, especially in frontier AI. I think one thing I'm worried about is, while yes, we try that, what if we end up in the other scenario where we don't manage to catch up ourselves? I feel like that's
we are already in that scenario.
Right. And that's the default, right? So it's arguably the more likely scenario. So what if we stay in that very uncomfortable scenario, and these models like GPT 5.5 and Mythos, they just keep coming out and they keep getting better and they keep getting more and more relevant for security? What is our plan there? How do we maintain access in that uncomfortable scenario? And I wish that more of the discussion in Brussels also was confronting that very, very uncomfortable question next to all the other questions that we've been
That's a
talking
bit,
about.
so you're saying we should do some doomsday prepping, or what's then?
No,
Is that
one thing is that you need to also understand that there is a market now for a really high level, excellent cybersecurity companies, right? Because we hear these gloomy scenarios all the time, but let's remember that there are also counter products. And yes, it will be slower, but I believe in our private sector in that sense that they see the market opportunity together with security here, that they are building up also. Yes, it's slower than these guys, but it is coming. And that's something I think where Europe should also now put money and investments, making sure that our because public sector can never keep up, but private sector.
And you think in addition to trying to also get access to the frontier, or do you think we can be fine not having access to frontier models in 2 or 3 years from now, even if they're supercharged Mythos versions who detect any vulnerability in software, and we can be fine and just hope that our startups...
I'm just not naive. How would you get access there? I would build our own models, start using our own models, and together develop counter products to these companies. Because with the DMA, did we get access to Apple, Google, Meta? No, and we will never get it, right? So those are trade secrets. So we can push it as much as we can, but I'm sorry, it won't happen. So that's why I'm pushing for European tech and then counter products. And of course, we can keep up doing this work together.
How fascinating I find this is. It feels like you're already
in Brussels,
you're already drafting a plan.
A conversation.
It's all settled. I want to close off this panel by asking you all three one question, and I want one straight answer, not sugarcoating anything or not explaining yourself, but just one clear answer. And it's about competitiveness, because we all think about the platform wars was a bit about, okay, we lost the platforms, fine, but now AI can really be also a game changer for European competitiveness and for European industrial base. So the first question is for you. We've seen in the past week that Germany is pushing for a lighter regime for industrial AI. They want an exemption for machinery out of the scope of the AI Act. In principle, do you agree with it, Pash?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah?
Absolutely. I think we need to stop speaking about simplification. We need to start speaking about deregulation. But it requires that copyright. It requires to talk about the GDPR and about the DMA, Digital Markets Act. Let's kick these American companies out and build our own technology and with better market,
but back to the initial question,
harmonized market.
With the AI Omnibus talks tomorrow evening, so your point is machinery should be exempt from the AI Act?
I'm not going to talk about the AI trilogues because, as you know, now the negotiations are ongoing. Yeah. I'm not there. I'm going to focus on these major issues.
Yeah. But in principle, you agree with...
In principle, I absolutely agree with heavy deregulation and harmonization of the market.
Okay. Alberto, the next question is for you. You already spoke about Spain presidency that closed the AI Act. If you now could go back to that moment and at the end of 2023, would you say to your minister, we're going too hard on this, let's make it a bit more feasible and a bit more realistic?
Well, I don't think I will go back, because what we decided at that moment is with the knowledge that we had at that moment and the situation that we lived in that moment. So I stand by the decisions that were taken at that time.
So no time traveling for you to correct
Well,
the mistake?
until the time travel machine is available, I don't think that's possible.
Okay, last question for you, Daniel. We talked a lot about access to these very capable models, but then again, a lot of people are saying, let's forget about this LLM and race and about the frontier models. We should double down on industrial applications. What would you choose if you have to choose? Access to big models or rather industrial applications?
I feel like that's the hardest question. That's like an impossible. Both. We need both. It doesn't work. We need both.
Time is ticking, man. I see the clock there.
It's the game of chicken, maybe. Yeah, I think it doesn't work with that. We need both, and I think we're in a better position organically as Europeans in the applications space, and so we should try and get as much out of that and leverage that as much as possible. I'm very worried about a scenario in which we don't have access to the strongest frontier models, and so the final answer is both.
Okay. That's okay. We're going to close this panel. It was super inspiring already. I keep in mind that there is a lot of interest to really build up a European base to make sure that we have access to these advanced models. I want to thank you all for your insights and really kicking off this summit in a good way. To the audience, we now have a 30-minute break to fill yourself up with coffee and other really nice pastries. Thanks, and see you after the break in 30 minutes.
We are united in diversity. We are very heterogeneous in our opinion.
We are doing this in our open democracies. Discussion is all open and loud, and I'm not for that.
What is European Union? What is freedom? How we learn together.
The obvious question is, what is the EU doing? What is our plan?